No, sir, not again. No, please, no, not again.
This is the most luxurious resort in the galaxy. It has all sorts of unimaginable facilities, but more appealing than these are the pirate treasures hidden deep within the ridges. An expedition team has ventured in search of the legendary lost planet At Attin. Can they fulfill their wishes and return to their former homeland? A hilarious interstellar adventure begins. Can these unlucky kids survive in a galaxy overrun by pirates? What kinds of adventures await them? Welcome to the latest sci-fi blockbuster, Star Wars: Skeleton Crew. Without further ado, let's get started. After the fall of the Empire, the New Republic maintained order in the galaxy. However, remote hyperspace routes were plagued by pirate attacks. These pirates emblazoned slogans on their armored ships, warning all ships, surrender or face destruction. One day, the pirates attacked a cargo ship protected by the New Republic. Both sides immediately engaged in battle. As the ship's hull was breached, the pirates became even more rampant. They killed all resisting crew members. A captain who calls himself Hilver took over the cargo ship. He ordered the crew to take him to the storage hold. The person in charge had to explain that they were a bulk cargo ship. They weren't transporting credit coins. Hilver obviously didn't believe him. Does a normal cargo ship need magnetic seals for its storage? He punched the person in charge in the stomach and ordered his men to throw the old man out of the airlock. Then he violently welded open the cargo hold. The pirates hadn't made a profit lately. If they could get their hands on a batch of credit coins, Hilver could control his crew. However, when he kicked the door open, there was only a single credit coin inside. Brutus immediately became displeased. How could so many of our brothers sacrifice for nothing? His men immediately surrounded Hilver. On the planet At Attin, a boy named Vim was a Star Wars fan. Unfortunately, his dad didn't understand his son's passion. He worked long hours and came home late every day of the week. He gave Vim enough money for food for the whole week and told his son that a repair robot would come soon to check the malfunctioning garage. After giving his instructions, he hurried out the door. Vim took his beloved toy and went to school. He was stopped halfway there.
You should not have come here.
It turned out to be his fellow Star Wars fan, Neil. The two chatted all the way onto the school bus. Vim noticed two students riding hover bikes pass by. He couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Everyone soon arrived at school. A robot teacher was lecturing at the podium. Vim sat below, doodling and daydreaming, until Vice Minister Farah from the supervisor's office appeared. She was here for tomorrow's career assessment test. This test would determine each child's future career. After receiving their scores, they would be divided into classes, ultimately becoming workers contributing to Planet At Attin, contributing their efforts to the Planet At Attin.
I want to be a senior statistical accountant.
Ah, yes.
Vim intentionally shrank back to avoid eye contact. He was still caught by Vice Minister Farah. Vim knew his dad was a system coordinator, but he wanted to do something different from his father, like helping people in crisis. The teacher stated that security work was now handled by robots. They didn't need you to help people in crisis. Vim wasn't referring to security work. He wanted to become a Jedi warrior. However, he forgot about the assessment test tomorrow. Neil urged Vim to try hard to pass, and put the two in the same class, because Neil wanted to score well, and be in the same class as the goddess, Runa.
I like her, but you never even talked to her. I'm working up to it.
Vim didn't want to deal with the exam. He just wanted to do something exciting, like those two students riding hover bikes, ignoring adult orders and enjoying freedom to the fullest. Soon, Vim and Neil walked home. Other parents were eagerly waiting for their children. But when Vim returned home, no one was there. On the other side, the bike girl Fongan was also feeling frustrated. Her bike malfunctioned and needed a new power converter, but the nearby junkyard had already been scavenged clean. The worst luck was with the annoying neighbor living nearby. He mocked Fongan's car as a baby toy, and deliberately invited her to a weekend race. Fongan would definitely not postpone, because racing was the only joy on this planet. She said goodbye to her friends and ran home. Fongan was caught by the housekeeper robot. From it, she learned that her mother had come home early. She was about to team up with the robot to deceive her mom into thinking she was studying, but the lie was exposed. It turned out that Fongan's mother was Vice Minister Farah. In order not to disappoint her mother's expectations, she had consistently ranked first in her class. She worked hard to play the role of a top student. These carefree children all had worries that adults couldn't understand. Vim worked hard until late at night. He deliberately waited for his father to come home.
Please read me a story like Mom used to.
Sorry, buddy. I gotta work.
Vim felt a bit disheartened after being rejected. He could only take out his electronic screen to imagine the Jedi world. The consequence of this was that he overslept. He just happened to miss the school bus. If it were any other day, it wouldn't matter. But today was an important exam. Vim rode his hover bike out of the garage. He planned to take a shortcut to school. However, when everyone was seated in the exam hall, Neil's seat next to him was still empty. He felt very anxious. He had no idea where Vim's shortcut was, but Vim was indeed rushing toward the school. Vim finally saw the shadow of the school, now that the shortcut had failed. He had directly gotten himself into a predicament. The grass was slippery, and Vim couldn't climb out. Just then, he discovered something interesting.
Student, you are in violation of school attendance protocols. Come with me.
Okay.
Vim waited outside the office. Before long, Fongyan suddenly walked over and asked him what trouble he had caused. Vim confessed that he had missed the assessment test. He had seen Fongyan racing and was very interested in this girl. Just as he was about to say more, his dad suddenly walked out of the office. He scolded Vim for being so thoughtless. He had been called to the school, and it would delay a lot of his work.
That doesn't matter because I found something buried in the woods. I think it's a lost Jedi temple like this.
But how would adults listen to children? He ordered Vim to find the examiner for a retest tomorrow. Moreover, because of this tardiness, 50 points would be deducted from his total score. This meant that Vim had to answer all the questions correctly to pass. After saying this, his father went back to work. However, Fongyan nearby was very interested in the things buried in the forest. Vim didn't want anyone else to know about it. He lied, claiming he had just been joking. There was nothing in the forest. He picked up his backpack and went to Neil's house. Vim climbed onto the roof and called out to Neil. The two entered the garage to look for usable tools. Since the adults didn't believe him, Vim decided to dig out the temple himself.
Ready? Yeah. 3, 2.
As they climbed up and were about to grab the tools to start digging, Vim discovered that someone had been here before. Then, the warning sound of a robot echoed. They were startled, just as they were about to find an excuse to avoid the penalty. Unexpectedly, Fongyan and her friend KB appeared from behind a rock. The girl knew Vim was lying, so she came over to confront him. The two girls planned to take away useful parts, but Vim insisted that he had discovered it first. Neither of them was willing to back down. Fongyan had to explain that this wasn't a Jedi temple. My grandfather said this place was originally part of a new community development area, but there was a malfunction at the wastewater station, and a large number of workers were infected with a virus and sealed underground to die. If you get closer and listen, you can still hear the screams of those people. Neil and Vim hurried over to listen closely.
You are so gullible, cause you're a liar.
Fongyan exchanged glances with KB, and deliberately said that the boys were stronger. Let the willing labor come to dig this thing out. They sat to the side, chatting and laughing, enjoying watching the two boys dig. Just then, Vim unknowingly bumped into something. KB, who was knowledgeable about machinery, immediately went over to check. Unexpectedly, after her operation, they actually opened a door directly. The kids shone their flashlights inside. They found that the space inside was quite large. At this moment, footsteps were heard nearby. They quickly crawled in to hide. Vim soon heard his father's voice. He knew that going out now would definitely be punished. It was better to take the risk and explore deeper first. Vim found a malfunctioning robot inside. Its stiff arms seemed to want to pull the lever next to it. Just as Vim was about to pry it open, Fongyan pulled him aside. The two began to argue. Unexpectedly, Neil accidentally bumped into the lever. The round door immediately closed. KB knew that without finding power, they couldn't open the door. They could follow the pipes to find the power source. A few people climbed into the underground operation cabin. KB found a device that was in sleep mode. She picked up a crowbar and gave it a couple of taps. This woke the device back up. The lights of various instruments illuminated the interior of the cabin. Looking at the pilot's seat, this ship-like object was likely buried underground with its body facing up. Fongyan knew that Vim wasn't honest. She warned him not to mess with the buttons inside, but the adventure-loving Vim couldn't resist. He pressed the green button. The next second, the entire space began to shake violently. Steam occasionally burst out. Even the robot was rebooted. They ran to the cabin door, only to find they were already far from the ground. Vim's father, searching for the kids in the woods, was stunned. The hill ahead was uprooted completely, revealing its true form. This wasn't a Jedi temple, but a real starship. Vim waved to his father on the ground, but the ship soon began to flip over. His friends grabbed him to pull him back into the cabin, while Vim's father could only watch as his child was taken away by the ship. They were about to cross the planet's barrier. Vim sat in the pilot's seat, trying to turn the ship around. They began to study the various buttons and controls. Unexpectedly, the ship suddenly stopped. Now the four of them were completely in space. They had no idea where they were. Strange noises came from the back of the cabin. They cautiously walked over to investigate. It turned out to be the rebooted one-eyed robot. It muttered to itself that someone had broken into the cockpit, and pulled up Vim to find the captain.
Hey! Your captain's dead!
Pertinent creatures, trying to fool me.
The robot acted according to its programming. In its understanding, a ship couldn't be without a captain. Upon hearing this, Fongyan thought of a plan. She told the robot that she had killed its captain, and thrown him into space. So now I am your captain. To her surprise, this trick actually worked.
Hey, no fair! I wanted to be the captain!
As crew, you may challenge the captain to a battle to the death.
No, that's okay.
Fongyan ordered the robot to teach her how to pilot the ship. The robot listed a bunch of button names. Fortunately, KB was there. Otherwise, no one would remember them. Vim curiously touched the cover in front of him. The robot immediately warned him that this was the emergency button. Pressing it would activate the ship's disintegration sequence. The robot suggested that they should repair the main system quickly. I know a very safe spaceport. There are many necessary parts there. Fongyan wasn't interested in that. She told the robot to search for At Attin, and wanted to return home quickly. But the robot's functions were incomplete. A mouse was burned on its rear. It crawled out from the overloaded robot's head. The robot couldn't locate their home planet, and there were stars everywhere in this universe. The four kids couldn't recognize which one was their home. Fongyan had to follow the robot's suggestion to head to the spaceport first. There must be someone there who has heard of At Attin star. Meanwhile, Vim's father encountered a robot patrolling the woods. He reported that a spaceship had taken his child away. The robot didn't understand how a spaceship could intrude here. He decided to take Vim's father back to report. On the other side, unlike the worried Neil, Vim had fallen in love with this adventure. Robot SM-33 quickly brought them to Bago Port. A pilot came over to assist them. SM-33 instructed everyone to follow him to the port. It stayed on the ship to begin the repair work. The pilot escorted the three to the port, then demanded payment. Fortunately, Vim had the meal money his father had given him. He stuffed a coin into the pilot's hand. The pilot left as if he had won the lottery. Vim realized that this money was valuable, and quickly hid it in his boot. The four of them wanted to find a chance to ask for directions, but they were soon distracted by various fascinating items. In the blink of an eye, they lost track of each other. A woman with blue hair noticed the wandering Fongyan and KB, and pulled them into a dark corner to hide. Because the most notorious pirates gathered in Bago Port, it was very dangerous for children here.
Okay, well, where's home?
At Attin?
Come on, seriously, girls, where are you from?
At the same time, Vim and Neil planned to use the excuse of getting food to inquire with the restaurant owner about At Attin star.
We go, daily special. Nice and tasty.
Vim took out the money to pay the bill. The owner immediately widened his eyes, preparing to rip off the customers, because Vim was holding the New Republic currency, which was rare in Bago. Neil explained that this was just lunch money given by their parents. We come from At Attin star. Everyone burst into laughter at this. It was as if Neil had told a joke. The restaurant owner planned to seize the rest of their money. Vim knocked over a porcelain bowl and ran away with Neil. The blue-haired woman also wanted to pull Fongyan and her friend away.
It's a better story than At Attin.
But it's true!
You're a couple of Linderlings from the lost planet of eternal treasure.
Just as she spoke, Vim and Neil ran over shouting loudly. Fongyan immediately drew her gun and stood in front of them. Unfortunately, a child's intimidation wasn't enough. The leader snatched her gun away. In a critical moment, SM-33 appeared just in time. Although it didn't look impressive, it was actually very capable in a fight. It easily took down several space thugs. Moreover, SM-33 could withstand a certain level of bullets. However, the commotion here would definitely attract the pirates. SM-33 quickly took the captain and left.
You bring us to a pirate port full of pirates!
Because we are also pirates.
We are not pirates!
Just as he finished speaking, SM-33 was electrocuted. The assailant was the pirate Butus. He couldn't understand how these kids could have the coordinates of Bago Port and avoid the cannons they had set up. He had no choice but to lock them in a cell. Neil took out the mouse that had burned its rear. He instructed it to sneak over and steal the cell key. The alien mouse obediently scurried over. It seemed this trick wasn't going to work at all. The four were huddled together, discussing how to escape the cell to rescue SM-33. Suddenly, a deep voice came from behind them. He said, "I can take you back to At Attin Star." Fongyan retorted without hesitation, "You've been locked up for so long. How can you help us escape?" The man raised his finger in response. The key floated to his hand as if attracted by a magnet. It directly floated into the man's hand. A faint light illuminated his face. It was clear that this man was a Jedi Master. This warrior's name was Jodner. He promised to help the kids escape from the cell. Fongyan couldn't help but ask, "If you can escape at any time, why didn't you leave earlier?" Jodner explained that without a spaceship, even if he escaped the cell, he couldn't leave the port. So he had been waiting for the right moment. Unlike the cautious Fongyan, Vim and Neil were seeing a Jedi for the first time. The two were already captivated by Jodner's force abilities. Just then, an IT-0 interrogation droid floated by overhead. They quickly hid in the shadows. Jodner didn't choose a route with fewer people to escape, because it was harder to be detected in a crowd. With the help of the Jedi Knight, they returned to the spaceship. Since At Attin was a lost planet, the kids were unsure of the way home, so Jodner planned to visit an old friend. This friend specialized in star maps and knowledge of lost planets. He would surely be able to find their home. Upon hearing this, Vim remembered SM-33. The kids decided to go back to rescue the robot. Jodner told everyone to stay on the ship. He grabbed a gun and went back to rescue SM-33. However, the pirates' junk pile was filled with robots. It would take too much time to search through them all. Jodner looked for a robot that appeared to be the most securely bound. He prepared to take it back. This robot was missing an eye, and a mouse lived inside it. It must be SM-33, without a doubt.
Captain Silver, is that you?
Benjar Pranik. You old blood.
Originally, Jordana was the pirate captain who robbed the cargo ship at the beginning of the film. He agreed to help the kids because he had his eye on the treasure of At Attin Star. The kids' pockets were filled with credit coins, which clearly indicated that the legend was true. Meanwhile, Vim and Fongyan also began to disagree. Fongyan didn't trust the suddenly appearing Jodner. She wanted to take advantage of his absence to leave on the ship. Besides, there were a million ways to make objects float. This Jodner might not necessarily be a Jedi Knight, but Vim felt that without Jodner's help, they would have no way to find their way home. Just as he finished speaking, Jodner had already returned. The Bangar from earlier was chasing him from behind. Jodner quickly docked the ship. He dragged SM-33 inside. The ship's body hooked onto the fuel line. Jodner attempted to pull the line free, but it turned out to be quite sturdy. Butis immediately ordered the cannons to be ready. While Jodner was still dodging attacks, the fuel line got entangled with several ships. With the cannons about to fire, he prepared to activate the hyperspace engine. Butis was enraged by Jodner, and immediately put a bounty on him and the kids. At this moment, the atmosphere on the ship was strange. SM-33, being a pirate, didn't trust Jodner. Vim, influenced by Fongyan, also kept his guard up, just in case there really was treasure on At Attin Star. They couldn't rule out that Jodner might turn treacherous. Several hours later, the ship landed on an unfamiliar planet. To prevent any surprises, Jodner deliberately hid the ship, and knocked on the door of the base ahead. A mechanical probe extended from within.
And you brought some children. Why, Jack, they aren't all yours, are they?
I know I left things in such a mess between us, but I couldn't show my face again until I brought you something really special.
In just a short while, Jodner had already mentioned 3 different names. It was clear he wasn't a trustworthy person. The star map expert was an owl named Jinmu. She knew all the stars and hyperspace routes in the galaxy. However, At Attin Star was an exception.
Your home has been purposely hidden from the rest of the galaxy. There is no map to At Attin.
Jinmu held an ancient scroll in her hand. It depicted the pearls of the Old Republic. These marvelous planets had been hidden for protection. Long ago, they were all destroyed. Now only one remained at Attin, although others thought this was a fairy tale. Jinmu had always believed in the existence of At Attin. She asked the group to describe their home planet, and planned to use astronomical features to search the archives, to see if she could find At Attin's location. Jinmu quickly picked up on the keyword barrier that Neil mentioned. She guessed that this referred to nebula gas. With this condition, they could quickly filter out 10,000 stars. Upon hearing this, Fongyan wanted to give up. She was about to hoist her backpack and leave, but Jinmu recognized the emblem on her backpack. It was a type of palmistry number. Only a few regions had used it. Jinmu used this detail for a cross-reference. Meanwhile, Jodner realized that something was amiss. It seemed that Jinmu was stalling for time.
Observatory Moon, come in. This is Sector Patrol inbound to your position.
Jinmu told the kids that this guy was a villain. He only wanted your treasure. Hurry and leave this place. But Jodner claimed that Jinmu was lying. He shook off the owl and took away the coordinate chip that popped up on the computer. He quickly took the 4 kids and left. However, KB remained cautious. She exchanged contact information with Jinmu. Then he teamed up with his companions to stop Jodner from boarding the ship. They demanded that he explain his identity and purpose. Only then did Jodner admit that he wasn't a Jedi.
Let's make a deal. I'll get you home. I'll do the right thing, maybe get a little reward. We'll make a partnership.
Not partners. You work for us.
Jodner glanced at the intimidating SM-33. He could only agree to be a subordinate to the kids. The group reached an agreement and returned to the cabin. At this moment, the sector patrol team had arrived. They had to get to the other side of the satellite. To make the jump, Jodner was overwhelmed on his own. He could only delegate the task to the kids. Not long ago, Vim and the others' biggest adventure was riding a floating speeder. Now they could pilot a spaceship and confront adults. Everyone worked together to shake off the patrol team. Moreover, using the coordinates filtered by Jinmu, they successfully jumped to At Attin star.
Just when things were starting to get fun.
As the spaceship approached the barrier, it entered a locked state and began an automated landing. They landed in a barren wasteland, but there were no living beings around. There was also a smell of ashes in the air. Fonyan realized that something was wrong. She instructed SM-33 to keep an eye on Jodner and not let him run around.
Come on, baby. Onto the ship, baby. Baby. Come onto the ship. Don't make me count.
Jodner returned to the ship and rummaged through the kids' belongings. He found the gold coins that Vim had hidden. Before he could be happy for 2 seconds, he was caught by SM-33. Jodner signaled for the robot to let him go and inquired about At Attin star and the previous captain. However, SM-33's memory was damaged and didn't remember anything before the crash. Strangely, he knew the name of this planet, At Attin Clan. Jodner planned to try to help SM-33 regain his memory. Meanwhile, Vim and the others were exploring the area. Although this place resembled At Attin, it wasn't their home planet. They guessed that this was one of the destroyed lost planets. The 4 arrived at a headless statue. They were debating whether this was a sculpture of the planet's leader. The next second, a bullet whizzed by. Immediately, a native appeared.
What flag do you fly?
What flag do we fly? What does that mean? We don't fly a flag.
The newcomer was named Haina. She claimed to be a Toykian and said that if the Hatton patrols got close, we would all be killed on the spot. The patrols that Haina mentioned were mostly adults. Vim saw the scene before him and thought that the local children and adults were fighting over control of the planet. They followed Haina to retreat and escaped to an abandoned school. The leader of this base was General Strees. He was Haina's father and the leader of the Toykians. Strees was also the ruler of At Attin clan. This planet held great respect for miners and acknowledged their abilities as warriors. However, they were indifferent to the outside world. They had never heard of At Attin. Vim countered, "Then do you have any ancient maps or star charts?" Haina mentioned a place called the Fallen Sanctuary. There were some ancient carvings there, and coordinates of other planets. However, that place was very far away. If they didn't prepare well, they could very well die along the way. So General Strees suggested that they train with the warriors. The group decided to stay. Neil discovered that the Toykians lived in simple tents and survived on some relief supplies. This was a far cry from At Attin. He asked Haina why they were fighting. The girl replied that last week, the Hatton people stole a group of their Io beasts. These were essential beasts of burden for the planet, so they planned to launch a raid tonight to reclaim the beasts. Then they would burn down the Hatton's granaries. Kind-hearted Neil quickly won Haina's favor, but her father only wanted to exploit these outsiders.
Captain Fern and her crew will honor us by leading us into battle.
What?
Letting them lead the way was basically sending them to their deaths. But Captain Strees didn't give the 4 any chance to refuse, so everyone had to move forward. A group of adults forced the children to scout ahead. This scene looked quite surreal. Haina worried about Neil and followed him. In the thick fog, a figure gradually appeared. They immediately took up defensive stances. The next second, Jodner stepped out. He was followed by SM-33 and the herd of beasts. What on earth was going on? It turned out that Jodner had encountered the Hatton people and learned that Vim and the others had joined the Toykian camp. Fortunately, the Hatton liked to negotiate, so Jodner took a few Republic coins from Vim and bought the IO beasts. At this moment, Haina pointed out the direction of the fallen sanctuary. It was clearly a watchtower. Neil wanted to invite Haina to leave with them. After all, his house was big, enough to accommodate many people. Haina declined Neil's kindness. Perhaps when she became the head of her family, she would try the methods Neil mentioned to bring peace back to this broken planet. Neil believed that Haina could do it. After bidding farewell, he continued forward. Everyone took the elevator to the top of the tower. The coordinates of the lost planet were written on several stone pillars, but only At Attin had been deliberately erased.
Who would do that?
I did. Why, were you looking for those?
You destroyed them? When?
When I was here before, with my old captain.
Fongen was about to ask for more details, when SM-33's memory froze. He could only repeat endlessly, "I don't know At Attin." Fongen thought of something. Robots always acted according to commands. Could it be that someone ordered SM-33 not to disclose the coordinates of At Attin?
I'm your captain. Run memory override. You remember everything about At Attin.
Ah, yes. I do remember At Attin.
According to SM-33's account, the previous captain killed all the crew members who saw the coordinates of At Attin here. The captain also ordered SM-33 to destroy the stone pillars and forget everything related to At Attin. Most importantly, the captain clearly instructed that if anyone came to inquire about At Attin, SM-33 must kill those people. Just as he finished speaking, he extended his limbs and entered combat mode. In a critical moment, it was Neil who came out to save his companions. Jodner stepped forward to shut down SM-33's power. Despite this, Neil fainted from fear. Jodner brought SM-33 back to the ship and restrained him. KB said that he had reconnected its memory chip to prevent SM-33 from trying to kill us again upon reboot. This time, they learned the name of the previous captain, Tecluner. Jodner had heard of this person. Moreover, he recognized that this broken ship was the Blackstone Ashes. Tecluner was a pirate of the galaxy. Whatever he set his sights on, he would surely seize. It is said that Tecluner got lost in the universe while searching for At Attin. Although SM-33's memory about the coordinates had been erased, it still remembered that Tecluner hid the information in a secret base deep within Skull Mountain. At that time, the first mate was blinded by the treasure that was almost within reach. He intended to challenge Captain Tecluner. He even incited his mistress to betray him, but the captain, fueled by his last breath of resentment, locked onto the ship's control panel. The traitorous members all perished at Attin during the crash. SM-33 was very excited to restore memory. He immediately drove towards his hometown in his memory.
Captain Renard's lair is hidden in these mountains, where none dare to go.
What about them?
Cavalcade of fearsome, bloodthirsty buccaneers, no doubt.
They look like pleasure yachts.
This place is completely different from what SM-33 described. It is called Lupa, a neutral planet. It welcomes all peaceful visitors. However, only adults are allowed inside here. Children must stop at the entrance. But Fongen was worried that SM-33 would escape after obtaining the coordinates, so she disguised herself and prepared to sneak in. The receptionist here was very welcoming. She even fitted SM-33 with a bolt to prevent violence. Jodner used his levitation ability to stealthily take a dagger. Whether he was a Jedi was truly puzzling. The tour guide kindly introduced the local attractions. SM-33 followed behind, complaining. It always believed that the bandits had been ruined by these people. What was most infuriating was that the spring dug by the pirates had been converted into a spa by them. SM-33 was so angry that it wanted to hit someone. It almost got electrocuted by the anti-violence bolt. Jodner noticed that there were too many guards here. The tour guide explained that the bank union was coming for an economic summit, so they had to be on high alert for spies and imposters. Although Jodner didn't have a reservation, he had Vim's Republic coins. Jodner booked a top-class room and dining. He was ready to enjoy himself for once.
Or is that Dash Senton in the flesh?
Dash Senton? How many names does he have?
Jodner had done too many bad things. He had previously stolen the bounty from this white-haired woman, and had also thrown her into a leech pit. This woman was no pushover. Jodner handed over all the Republic coins, and asked the tour guide to ignore the earlier incident. Then he took the kids back to the room, ready to act swiftly. Perhaps the white-haired woman had already seen the bounty list, and would soon report their location. Jodner's guess was absolutely correct. The first thing the white-haired woman did upon returning was to contact Butis. Although the external environment of the planet had changed, Tecluner's base must still be deep within the ridge. SM-33 pointed out that the first step was to pass through the spot area mentioned by the tour guide. The captain had made a special mark at the entrance to quickly find the entrance to the base. Jodner suggested splitting into teams. Fonan and Vim took SM-33 to the bathing area. A petite Trogloff was holding a tray, serving a massive Hurton, only to be swallowed whole by the latter. SM-33 couldn't help but exclaim. In the past, the boss would use these pools to dissolve bodies in acid. Fonan ignored its complaints. Since the sludge flowed down from the mountains, they could get closer to the ridge by following the pipes. On the other side, Jodner and Neil's team were beside the mud bath. They discovered a pile of carvings that appeared to be ancient Sith letters in the Kit-Tat script, without the symbols depicted in SM-33. Jodner asked KB to perform a cross-comparison. At this moment, a group of patrolling soldiers suddenly blocked their path. They wanted to verify their identities. Jodner led everyone to escape immediately. At the same time, Fonan had found the entrance mark in the grotto, but the problem was that there is a huge Thalops swimming in the nearby pool. This was an original character of unknown species. Vim called for help to Neil via the intercom, but his companions were too preoccupied and were being cornered by the patrolling soldiers. KB pulled out a wrench for self-defense. What's the use of this thing when patrolling soldiers laugh? SM-33 led Jodner down to the lower cave. At this moment, Fonan had already dealt with the Thalops. As long as she told it a story to make it happy, the Thalops would help open the door to the base. The group safely entered the maze passage. According to SM-33, the area was filled with traps. They had to stay focused. Just as he finished speaking, Neil spotted a skeleton lying on the ground. Moreover, its head was separated from its body.
Decapitated.
I never thought being short was a happy thing. At the same time, Butis's pirate crew had already arrived. They had also killed the guards in the corridor. They shouted Jodner's alias, and their voices reached the protagonists. SM-33 speculated that the base should be directly beneath this stone chamber. However, a pool of water blocked their way. Fonan had SM-33 analyze the solution's composition. She found that this was the strong acid pool that 33 had mentioned. KB noticed some writing above the pool. Those who wish to enter paradise must make the greatest sacrifice. Ordinary people might think that life is the most important, but someone like Tecluner took pleasure in killing. Life meant nothing to him, so Jodner took out his last Republic coin and tossed it in. The strong acid spiraled downwards, revealing a staircase leading underground. The next moment, the pirate crew arrived on the scene. Fortunately, Jodner closed the stone door just in time. Treasure was piled all over the room. SM-33 indicated that the coordinates should be hidden in the captain's data log. Jodner warned everyone not to touch anything recklessly. The treasure could also contain traps. They should look for anything unusual first, or something resembling a data port. Vim scanned the surroundings and even found a lightsaber. At this moment, Neil pointed at the dining table and said, "The food on the table is all rotten, but this piece of steak looks fine." He was about to reach out to touch it, when the stool beneath him suddenly gave way. Jodner bypassed the trap and pulled the stake. He triggered the captain's log. SM-33 immediately began reading and filtering. He successfully found the coordinates of At Attin. Jodner asked SM-33 if he could control the system. It would be best to pump the acid back into the stone chamber. The next moment, the screams of the pirate crew came from outside the door. Jodner continued to read the log. He wanted to know what the so-called treasure was. Tecluner quickly revealed the answer in the log. It turned out that At Attin was the last Old Republic mint. It could produce unlimited money. No wonder it was a planet with eternal treasure. Jodner's expression changed. He told SM-33 that he was going to exercise his right to challenge the captain. It would be a close combat to the death. Only the winner could become the captain of the Blackstone Ashes. This was the cruel pirate code. Jodner urged Fonan to surrender, so they wouldn't get hurt in the duel. Fonan wouldn't surrender easily, but she was no match for Jodner. Seeing his friends in trouble, Vim stepped out with the lightsaber. The thing he feared most as a child happened. He was holding the lightsaber backward. Fonan could only endure and stubbornly surrender. Jodner immediately ordered SM-33 to look for a new escape route. and to take these prisoners with them. Vim had a sudden idea and triggered the stool mechanism. The ground instantly collapsed. The 4 children vanished. Vim grabbed the lightsaber, speechless. Let's put a pin in the situation here for now. Now, let's take a look at the situation on At Attin star. Due to the existence of the barrier, the supervisor had not sent anyone to look for the missing persons, so several parents were very anxious. One day, Neil's mother found Vim's father, and handed him a special device. With this device, they could infiltrate the system, and steal the barrier authorization code. Vim's father had never done anything illegal. He finally connected to the computer, only to be discovered by the security robot. It detected an energy breach in Vim's father's terminal. Then it found the intrusion device. The security robot immediately reported to Deputy Minister Fala. However, Fala deleted the violation record, because her daughter Fongyan was also missing. She also called Vim's father over, to hear if his plan was reliable. On the other side, the 4 of them fell into the mechanism under the stool, and slid directly to the back mountain through an underground pipe. KB fell hard and her cybernetic body malfunctioned. Now she lay on the ground, unable to move. Fongyan turned her over. She planned to check KB's occipital joint. Meanwhile, Jodner returned to the surface with the jewels from the basement. He was caught red-handed. The pirates arrested him on the spot, and prepared to take him to Captain Butis. Jodner quickly summoned SM-33 to attack. However, just as SM-33 popped its head out, it was shot down by a pirate. At this moment, several ships suddenly appeared in the sky. Vim recognized them as the X-Wings called by Jinmu, specially designed to hunt pirates. The children waved their hands, calling for help, but those ships ignored them. Fortunately, KB had returned to normal, and she had noted the coordinates of their home planet. Now they just needed to get back to the ship, to safely return to their homeworld. But the problem was that the ship was perched on a cliff. There was no way they could climb up. Fortunately, there were several unknown creatures at the bottom of the cliff that could understand human speech.
These guys are locals. We can follow them to someone who can help. Follow.
Fongyan thought this was too dangerous. KB agreed with Vim's opinion. This surprised Fongyan. Could it be that she had made KB foolish? In the past, KB always stood by Fongyan unconditionally. Now she was going against her. Fongyan threw a tantrum and decided to split up. Before leaving, she insisted on dragging Neil along. The 2 groups headed off in opposite directions. Meanwhile, Jodner had already been taken aboard the ship. Butis kept looking down on him. He immediately decided to drag Jodner to the airlock for execution, but the pirates had to adhere to their code. No matter how vicious the criminal, they had to grant the right to a final appeal. Butis wasn't an unreasonable man. He opened the hourglass next to him and counted down, giving Jodner time to plead. Throughout history, every great achiever has been an excellent orator. Jodner was certainly no exception. He appealed to their emotions and reasoned with them, hoping the pirates would give him a chance. Everyone was on high alert every day, just to snatch a few scraps from the galactic junkyard. If there were a place with abundant treasure, we could escape this miserable state. Jodner took out the gold coins he had secretly hidden. He confessed that he had found the lost planet At Attin. It was a genuine mint factory. Butis wouldn't miss any opportunity. He ordered Jodner to take them to At Attin. If they couldn't find this lost planet, Butis would throw him out of the airlock. On the protagonist's side, KB stepped out but soon became immobile. She explained that her cybernetic body was corroded. She could only go gather some robot servos, to see if she could repair herself. Upon hearing this, Vim went to help her collect the parts. Then he followed KB's instructions to strip the wires.
Is this why you didn't want to climb? You could have just told Fern. Ever since my accident, Fern always assumed I could do anything she could. Like I'm not different. But I am different.
KB feared that being honest would cost her the friendship of Fongyan. KB's situation was becoming dire. Vim hurried his actions. He melted the wires and poured them into a mold. Vim quickly assembled the microfuse, and pushed it into KB's resonator casing. Fortunately, this method worked. The 2 followed the junk crab to its nest. They found no helpers, but instead saw a giant female crab. The small crabs behind it surged forward.
I think we're food.
Unaware of the danger, Fongyan was climbing with Neil. However, the elephant child's legs were too short to even reach the rungs of the ladder. Fortunately, Fongyan spotted a bundle of rope. She tied it around Neil to help him advance. This would save him some energy. Unexpectedly, the ship overhead was moved by a work machine. The 2 hurried to speed up their movements. As the ship shifted closer to them, Fongyan jumped directly toward the ship's body. They lay down to reduce resistance, and spotted Vim and KB not far away, along with the swarm of crabs trailing behind them. Fomin made a quick decision to lower the work machine. Just in the nick of time, she saved herself and KB. The giant crab hurled a massive rock and smashed one of the working machines. The ship lost its balance and threw them out. Fomin got up and hugged KB tightly. She had long forgotten the earlier unpleasantness. In fact, even if KB admitted her malfunction, Fomin would never abandon her as a friend. At this moment, a huge noise came from behind the hill. A massive garbage compactor was compressing the waste collected by the work machines. If they delayed any longer, the ship would be totaled. The four rushed into the cabin attempting to start the ship. But normally, SM-33 was at the helm. KB needed some time to familiarize herself with the controls. Meanwhile, the garbage compactor drew closer. Vim hurriedly operated the cannon to see if he could blast the garbage compactor away. But that massive thing was too sturdy. The ammunition fired from the cannon was utterly ineffective. Fortunately, KB finally connected to the engine. Fomin and Neil worked together to break free from the compactor's obstruction, but the ship got stuck and the engine declared overheating. Only by blowing up part of the hull can it take off. Fomin remembered the emergency hull destruction device that SM-33 had mentioned. Although they had been warned not to touch that button, the situation was urgent, and Fomin had no time to hesitate. She pressed the switch. Sparks erupted continuously from the middle section of the ship. The front and rear sections were rapidly breaking apart. The ship successfully broke free from control and flew toward the galaxy. At the same time, several parents were also making an effort to obtain the barrier authorization code. They were hiding in the wilderness assembling communication devices, but were discovered by patrolling security robots. The parents had to pick up their gear and flee. The robots fired light waves, stunning the stragglers. After one parent fainted, another picked up the gear and continued to run. In the end, only Deputy Minister Falla was left. She held her equipment and hid behind the boulder. Then she sent the communicator out beyond the barrier. Meanwhile, the children inside the ship were very cheerful. According to the instruments, they would soon be home. Only Vim appeared sullen. When they returned, the adults would definitely confiscate the ship. Everything would go back to the way it was. He might even have to take an assessment test. Neil urged Vim not to be too sad. At least we had a brand new adventure. As soon as he finished speaking, Butis's ship arrived near At Attin star. From the outside, the planet looked like a toxic whirlpool. If they flew in, the ship would likely become scrap metal. Butis suspected that Jodner was lying. He ordered his men to open the airlock. Jodner didn't want to be thrown into space. He asked Butis for a fighter jet. "If you don't believe me, I can fly in first." Butis didn't take Jodner's suggestion. What if he flew away in the fighter jet? It was better to send one of our own crew members to explore.
Ravager 1 ready, Captain. Get on with it.
The Plunderer 1 quickly entered the atmosphere. Visibility here was extremely low. The fighter jet immediately encountered turbulence. The pilot was about to say he thought he saw something. The next second, he lost contact with the mothership. Butis was furious. He ordered his men to throw Jodner into the airlock. It seemed he was about to be left to die in space. The ship of the four just happened to arrive. They were detected by the pirates on board. Jodner hurried out to explain. "This ship is the key for us to enter At Attin." Upon hearing this, Butis activated the tractor beam to lock onto Vim's ship. Then Butis approached the airlock door and commanded them to drop their weapons and come out to surrender. Unexpectedly, before he finished speaking, he was captured by a mechanical hand.
Release the tractor beam and we'll let him go.
Jodner unlocked his handcuffs, picked up his weapon, and fired a shot at Butis, pointing out that a despicable person like him wasn't worth mourning. Even if you continue to follow Butis, you won't make any money. Hearing this, everyone put down their weapons. Jodner explained that there were only 4 children on the ship. He urged them to send someone in to capture them. Jodner seized the opportunity, and once again became the leader of the pirates. He also intercepted the communication signal sent by Falla.
"Children, we're sending out this message on a communication buoy, hoping you'll hear it."
Several parents explained that due to safety protocols, they couldn't transmit any coordinates. However, once they found a Republic envoy, they would learn the secret location of At Attin and how to pass through the barrier. Hearing their parents apologizing and encouraging them, the children felt uneasy. They were determined to reclaim their ship. Unfortunately, they couldn't overpower the pirates. Just then, SM-33 suddenly spoke up. According to the pirate code, a captain can only own 1 ship. Since Jodner had already become the captain of the escort ship, he couldn't possess the Blackstone Ashes. Jodner quickly realized this. He covered Vim's mouth and asserted once again that he was the captain of the Blackstone Ashes.
I call Enclave these enclaves for kids only. 33 get these pirates off our ship.
Fred doesn't work like that.
SM-33 immediately swept through the area, and then took the children to pilot the Blackstone Ashes away. The pirates hurriedly dispatched 2 fighter jets to follow them. As SM-33 approached At Attin, it discovered that the defensive energy grid surrounding the planet was extremely dangerous. Strangely, the Blackstone Ashes seemed unaffected.
Aye, that was Captain Rennett's genius! Stealing one of the Mint's own ships so he could fly it safely back through!
The Blackstone Ashes was originally a cargo ship for the Mint. It safely navigated past the energy grid and entered At Attin Star. The familiar homeland was just within reach. Unexpectedly, Jodner's voice suddenly rang out behind them. He swung his lightsaber at SM-33. The robot's head separated from its body. Jodner opened the communicator in an attempt to contact the pirates, but the barrier severely affected the signal. He now warned the children, "Don't let me catch you scheming. I just saw your parents' faces. If you don't obey, I'll kill them." At the same time, the parents were locked in an office for violating At Attin's security protocols. Suddenly, an announcement came over the intercom. It stated that an envoy had arrived with cargo. All non-essential work was to be halted. KB's mother was delighted to discover that her daughter was approaching. She detected the signal from the ship. The Blackstone Ashes landed safely. Jodner disguised himself as a Republic envoy and led the 4 children off the ship. Vim and the others were afraid their parents were in danger and didn't dare to expose his lies. At this moment, the security robots routinely greeted the envoy. Planetary regulations required that visiting envoys could go directly to the Mint to unload their cargo. As soon as the words were spoken, the entire Blackstone Ashes began to descend. It descended to the underground Mint.
About my other ship, perhaps it would be best if I contacted them.
Communication outside the barrier is not permitted.
I am your emissary.
You must speak with the supervisor about the barrier, emissary.
As soon as the robot finished speaking, they arrived at the vault. A treasure unfolded before them. At Attin had 1,138 such vaults. It was truly a resource that seemed endless. Jodner was nearly brought to tears at the sight. "We pirates have never seen so much money." Vim and the others sat outside the vault, feeling dejected. Their parents came looking for them. Unfortunately, they hadn't been happy for long. When Jodner emerged with a lightsaber, the parents didn't know his true identity, and thanked the envoy for returning the children. Jodner stated that these children had violated several safety regulations and posed a serious threat to At Attin's security. Therefore, Jodner, in the name of the envoy, demanded that the security robots watch the children to ensure they stayed at home and didn't go out. The parents had to comply. Vim went home with his father. The security robots monitored them closely. This made it difficult for Vim to explain to his father. He contacted Neil using a walkie-talkie to discuss a plan to deal with the robots. All communication would be reported to the envoy. "Who are you talking to?"
"All communication will be reported to the emissary. Who are you speaking to?"
Meanwhile, Jodner was worried about Fong Yen. He deliberately kept her with him to meet the supervisor. Fala was concerned that her daughter insisted on following them. When they arrived at the supervisor's office, Jodner realized that the so-called supervisor was a robot. The entire At Attin was controlled by artificial intelligence. Jodner introduced himself as a Republic envoy, and also a Jedi Knight. He needed to allow another ship to enter At Attin. The supervisor indicated that there was no problem, but he needed to clarify one detail. The last message from the Republic claimed that all Jedi were traitors. Therefore, a Jedi could never be a Republic envoy. Are you really an envoy or a Jedi?
He's a pirate trying to invade the Mint!
As I suspected. Seize the impostor.
Seeing his identity exposed, Jodner stabbed at the supervisor with his lightsaber. As the main robot malfunctioned, the entire At Attin came to a standstill. Vim immediately ran to the window to check. After noticing the power outage, he saw that even the security robots had shut down. Vim told his father that Jodner was the bad guy. Meanwhile, Jodner was studying the control panel. He wanted to know which button could turn off the barrier. Fala couldn't watch the survival protection be destroyed. She proposed, "I can let your ship in."
We'll take our fill of credits and we'll go. You'll never see us again. No one will get hurt.
He's lying. He's gonna stay, and he's gonna stay.
To protect her daughter, she had to grant authorization for the escort ship to enter the planet. The pirates landed under everyone's watchful gaze. Vim's father still wanted to seek help from the robots. These adults had been living an ordinary life since birth. and had lost their autonomy. Now that the system was damaged, the robots were just scrap metal. Vim and his friends had to find a way to defend their home. Previously, Ms. Jinmu the Owl had given KB a contact number. If they just got on the ship and flew outside the barrier, they could call Jinmu for help. The group immediately hopped on their floating bikes and set off. As soon as the pirates landed, they began to burn, kill, and loot. They aimed to take local residents hostage, to produce credit coins for them. The 3 children, along with Vim's father, were also pursued by the pirates. They sped away, dodging bullets. To find cover, they had to dive into the forest first. They accelerated over the cliff. Then they drove into a building by the roadside. The pirates trailing behind hit Neil's floating bike. He told his friends to prioritize the mission, and to find a place to hide for themselves. The remaining 3 found the Blackstone ashes. However, the ship was locked down by docking clamps. They needed to restore power to release it. All the power relays ran through the supervisor's tower. Vim's father was at least a level 7 system coordinator. As long as they found the relays, they could restore power. Vim's father accelerated forward with his son, as they headed toward the supervisor's tower, risking being killed by pirates. At the same time, Fonyan wasn't sitting idly by. She quietly reminded her mother that as long as they got the robot's energy weapon, they could stun Jodner. Just as they finished discussing their plan, Vim burst in, holding a communicator. He falsely claimed that he had called for an X-Wing. Jodner didn't easily believe him. The barrier would surely block all communications. Vim continued to lie, saying that as long as they had the Creator's crystal, they could transmit outside. The crystal was guarded by an ancient warrior. While Vim was stalling with his nonsense, Vim's father sneaked in to repair the power supply. At the moment power was restored, Vim notified KB to start the ship. Fonyan took the opportunity to grab the energy weapon, and broke the arm of the robot. However, she couldn't detach the weapon. Fortunately, Neil covered KB, allowing her to break through the pirate encirclement. They piloted the Blackstone ashes out of the barrier. KB immediately contacted Jinmu to transmit their coordinates, asking her to call the New Republic to eliminate the pirates. Just as they transmitted the coordinates, the ship was blown apart by the pirates. The out-of-control ship plummeted rapidly. KB's parents were extremely anxious.
KB, are you alright?
Yeah, Mom. Fixing it. Fixing it.
Can't fix anything, sweetie.
Everyone anxiously watched the ship, but it dragged its long cigarette tail, and fell to the ground. Fonyan felt a sinking feeling, hinting to Vim to destroy the barrier. Otherwise, even if reinforcements found At Attin, they wouldn't be able to breach the barrier and come in. However, Jodner took control of Vim's father first. Vim froze in place and dared not move. Jodner told them not to struggle anymore. The galaxy was a place of survival of the fittest. When he was a child, he lived in a hole, and his biggest worry was not starving to death. He was finally picked up by a Jedi, and became her apprentice. But unfortunately, she hadn't taught Jodner much, before she was killed by enemies. From that moment on, Jodner vowed to kill everyone who stood in his way to seize the resources of the galaxy. Vim knew Jodner was serious. He reluctantly released the control stick. Jodner then urged them to obey, and peacefully mint credit coins. Unexpectedly, Vim's father attacked when Jodner was off guard. He knocked the lightsaber out of Jodner's hand. Fala immediately shut down the barrier, and the protective layer over At Attin vanished. Republic warships streaked across the sky. Soon, they defeated the pirates thoroughly. Vim and the others entered the elevator to leave the supervisor's tower. Meanwhile, Jodner remained behind, watching the escort ship gradually fall and crash. The other children immediately went to look for KB. Fortunately, her ship was stuck and posed no danger to her life. Vim gazed at the brave warships above him. He thought he could finally answer his teacher's question from earlier, about what he wanted to become in the future. Vim already had the answer in his heart. This season's story ends here. Although it's a children's series, it's a standard children's adventure theme. However, it boasts excellent special effects and production quality. The story is complete and mature, but much of the logic isn't worth scrutinizing. A group of pirates were teased by a few children. It's truly laughable. The most surprising character was Jodner. At first glance at the poster, I thought this film was about Jude Law babysitting. I didn't expect him to play a villain. If you enjoy the Star Wars theme, it's still worth a watch.